It is possible to love a movie and to disagree with some of its choices at the same time. That's exactly what we're going to get into today when I talk about Dune Part 2, the book versus the movies. What's up, everybody? My name is Miscellaneous Gab, and welcome back to my channel where I enjoy telling stories about stories. And today I'm getting into the very long-awaited Dune Part 2 movie review, mostly a book versus movie comparison, what the movie changed, what the movie left out, and if that was a good decision or a bad decision. We're going to cover all of that today. As you may be able to tell, I'm filming from my hotel room right now. I just saw the movie 2 days ago. I've been working on the script since then. It's not necessarily how you say it, where you say it, it's what you say. I actually have my camera mounted on the giant bucket of popcorn I bought at the movie. Thank you for all your support in my Dune terminology video. I really appreciate that. If you haven't checked it out, go check that out now. Let's not waste any time. Like I said at the beginning, I loved this movie. I thought Dune 2 was a solid 9 out of 10, 9.25 out of 10. As with any adaptation, there will be changes and people will have something to say about those changes. And today I'm going to be that person that's going to say things about those changes. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, just remember to be kind in the comments. I'm a human being as well. So far, everyone has been lovely, but I am seeing a lot of argument out there on the interweb. But you know what we do on the Miscellaneous Gab channel? We keep it kind and nice. Obviously, spoilers everywhere. This is a spoiler alert for the entire first Dune book. I won't be getting into any spoilers for Dune Messiah, and obviously spoilers for the film. So if you haven't seen part 2 yet, go back and watch my part 1 recap as well as my non-spoiler terminology video. So before I say anything that is remotely critical of this film, I do want to praise Denis Villeneuve because he is a true fan of Dune. Denis Villeneuve read Dune when he was a teenager. He has dreamed about making this film for decades, and it's really clear that he respects the story and the source material. Second, I know it's really easy for me to be here with a huge tub full of popcorn, getting to see the movie in IMAX laser, and then sit here and tell you what I liked and didn't like about the film. I know it is exponentially harder to actually go out and make that adaptation. I am just a nerd, a book lover, pointing out some things, but truly, this was a masterpiece of epic proportions, and this movie deserves all the credit, all the praise that it's getting, and more. So right away, let's talk about some important structural elements that you have in the book that maybe get lost in the movie. First things first is the perspectives. The perspective of the Dune book is a third-person omniscient narration style. What this means is that we pretty much get let in on everybody's thoughts. So we get to see the internal thoughts of Paul, Jessica, Chani, Feyd-Rautha, the Baron, the Emperor, Gaius Helen Mohaim, Stilgar, Gurney Halleck. We get to know what everybody is thinking. This is not only very challenging for an author to do, to give everybody their own unique voice and internal dialogue, but it's a fascinating adventure for the reader. It's also important to know that the book is way more political and character driven, whereas the movie has to rely more on spectacle and action. But I do think we lose some of the political brilliance and the plans within plans, tricks within tricks. These are basically trained superhumans, whether it's a Bene Gesserit, a Mentat, even the dukes and barons and leaders, what have you, the Fremen. Everyone excels in some way, far greater than the average human, far greater than you and me, who rely so much on technology and machines to do our lives and our thinking for us. Some of the opening scenes, the action, the Paul and Chani versus Harkonnen action that you see, a lot of that is more alluded to, or it's simply not in the books, but it was obviously added for dramatic effect, for more action to grab your attention right away. The other structural element that is significantly different between the book and the movie is the time jump. So in the book, there is about a 2 to 3 year time jump. This is significant because it shows that the Fremen reverence for Paul isn't as sudden or radical as it may seem in the movie. There was time. During this time, Paul truly becomes a man of the desert. He truly becomes a Fremen. This time jump also allows us to have a deeper understanding with him and his relationship with Chani. This affects their character dynamic and their closeness and their love for each other, which is obviously very much changed in the movie, and I'll get into that later because that is one of the things I did not like at all. Two key things that happened during this time jump is that Aaliyah, Jessica's daughter, is born. Aaliyah is born having all of the genetic memory that was passed on to her mother during the Water of Life ceremony. So she comes out the womb like knowing what the fuck is up. She's like, what's up? I'm Aaliyah. Hey, hi, how you doing?
Hello, motherfucker. Hey, hi, how you doing?
This is a problem because people are very uncomfortable with that. In no culture, in no religion, in no mythology is it very normal or traditional or desired for a child to come out knowing more things than most human beings. It's creepy. It's creepy. She's creepy. I like how they did not have Aaliyah come into existence in the movie because there's something to look forward to. I like how they kind of substituted Aaliyah's presence with her speaking to Jessica. I did not like how the talking embryo Aaliyah actually served to radicalize Jessica. I disagree with the radicalization of Jessica, who is one of the smartest and most restrained, most balanced characters in the entire book. So we'll get into that when we talk about characters. We have about a 3-year-old Aaliyah who actually is responsible for killing the Baron Harkonnen. And I just think this is hard to nail. One very key thing that they also left out during this time jump is that Paul and Chani have a son together, Leto Jr. And Leto Jr. is killed during the siege of Siege Tabor. So Paul not only becomes a father, but he loses his son during this time. This is so important for Paul's character arc, for Chani and Paul's relationship dynamic, for Chani's character arc. Time jump is also why people don't just like appear ping pong paddle back and forth between Arrakis and planets such as Gedi Prime. I had somebody ask me like, why was the Baron just on Arrakis and then on Gedi Prime and then back on Arrakis at the end of the film? Space travel is no joke. You're not just hopping on Spirit Airlines. You're not just catching a flight, going to Napa for the weekend. This is a big deal. It's very expensive. It takes time. It takes energy and effort. Baron Harkonnen actually left Arrakis for many years, and that he left behind Glossu Raban, and that he and Feyd-Rautha did not come back until the end. They were chilling on Gedi Prime. They were killing slaves and they were doing their thing. The time jump is also important because it raises the stakes for the end of the film. There has been years of Raban basically failing on Arrakis, not being able to make the spice quotas, and this is part of a larger plan for Baron Harkonnen to screw him over and put Feyd-Rautha in charge of Arrakis. I want to get into some of the key scene changes, some of the ways the different scenes were portrayed differently between the book and the movie, and then after that I'm going to get into characters, so saving the best for last. So we start off after we have a little skirmish between Paul the Fremen and the Harkonnen, which was manufactured for the action of the film. They go back to CH Tabor. When we see them entering CH Tabor, it seems like everyone is highly sus of them. They're yelling at Paul for killing Jamis. They're screaming. Everyone's shooting him daggers, giving him these looks. And while people are suspicious of Paul and his mother entering CH Tabor, the Fremen are very suspicious of outsiders. Really, the only outsiders that they have accepted that we know about are Duncan Idaho and Liet Kynes. I think this actually misrepresents a bit about Fremen culture. Fremen people are very practical, hardened people. People die all the time in Fremen culture, and they hardly even grieve their dead because they see it as a waste of water. In Fremen culture, people are calling each other out and challenging them all the time. This is always a fight to the death, and the fight up to the death results in taking ownership of not only that person's water, but that person's belongings and even family. It is normally an honor then for the wife to then bear children with the person who bested her ex. Survival of the fittest, I guess. So in the book, not even Jamis's wife will waste water. She is actually kind of astounded that Paul is the one who wasted water, who cried for Jamis. When they return to CH Tabor, it is like a shit hitting the fan moment. They don't really have time to mess around. Jamis's wife even says, I don't have time to grieve. We gotta go. We got to go. They know that they need to leave. They know that they need to pack up. They know it's just a matter of time before the Sardaukar and the Harkonnen find CH Tabor, so they gotta get the hell out. It was actually a bit of a slow start in the film. We have more of like the gossiping, like Chani and her friend gossiping, eating snacks, people acting silly and goofy, Paul acting silly and goofy. But in the book, it is a way more serious thing of like, okay guys, the gig is up. We gotta go. And we have this new guy and this new girl in our midst. They might be prophets. They might be something big. They might be something important. We might kill them. We don't know. So that leads us into the Reverend Mother ceremony. First of all, Jessica as the Reverend Mother, oh my God, she looks amazing. I'm 100% gonna be here for Halloween. The Reverend Mother ceremony, the Water of Life ceremony, like I said in my Dune terminology video, you drink this poison. It's created from the bile of a sandworm, and it is supposed to unlock the genetic memory and essentially turn you into a Reverend Mother. No man is is ever known to have survived this ritual, and even the women die sometimes. So it's a big deal. In the movie, we see that Stilgar basically comes up to Jess and is like, you either do this or you're gonna die. That's not how it is in the books. In the books, Jessica and Stilgar have this like moment of, should we like and they even consider like, what could this strategically be good for us to kind of pair up and get together. Stilgar has a lot of respect for Jessica. Jessica has a lot of respect for Stilgar. Instead, what they decide is that they do need another Reverend Mother. The old lady, the current Reverend Mother, is too old and too ill to make the journey that they have to make to escape their enemies. So Stilgar presents Jessica with the question and the option, like, why don't you become our new Reverend Mother? This puts Jess in a very hard predicament because she basically has to choose between two of her children. She knows that if she becomes the Reverend Mother, that will make her and Paul a bit more indispensable, a bit less likely to get killed for their water by the Fremen, where they still do not have a safe place amongst the Fremen. They do not have a safe place amongst the desert. This is still very much survival mode. But then she also knows that this poison drug cannot be good for her unborn child. The Reverend Mother ceremony and the water of life ceremony is actually a big orgy in the book. Now, the word orgy can mean different things in different religious contexts. It might mean that everyone is like kind of doing the honky tonky with each other, but it also can mean like a very heightened religious and therefore bodily sexual experience where maybe some people are kind of honky tonking, others are praying, worshiping. But every time there's a water of life ceremony, because after the Reverend Mother drinks the water of life, she is then able to detoxify it. It turns into this drug that not only gives prescience but helps elevate the mood. During this experience, this is where Paul and Chani first really come together and share their future with one another. They have glimpses into the future. Now, at this point in the book, Paul is having more and more prescient visions from the spice. He's able to get glimpses of this jihad, and he's still trying to make those moves and counter moves to stop it. It's foggy, and the more spice he consumes, the less clear it is. Paul says that Fremen also have elements of this prescience, but they actually shy away from using it because it freaks them out a little bit. This book was written in the 60s. There were other things going on in the 60s, and I feel like this scene makes perfect sense for when it was written. Next, let's get into Paul drinking the water of life. So in the movie, Jessica drinks the water of life and kind of turns a little bit evil and cunning and manipulative, and she really is like, Paul, you gotta see, you gotta get in on these visions. But in the book, that doesn't happen at all. Paul drinks it for his own reasons. He does it in secret. He does it in stealth. He actually doesn't want anybody to know about it. And the reason why Paul drinks the water of life is because Gurney Halleck almost kills Jessica. That might feel like a sort of bomb drop, like what the hell is going on? And that goes back to another plot line that they dropped within the first movie that took place. I'm gonna take 10 seconds, probably more like 30, to explain that to you. So basically, like I've said in my previous videos, you know that there is betrayal afoot against Duke Leto. You know that someone is going to betray him. Duke Leto knows someone is going to betray him, and he doesn't know who. So as part of a sniff out the rat, like let's figure out who is betraying me, he plants a seed to Gurney Halleck, Duncan Idaho, Thufir Hawat, all his homies, that maybe Jessica is the one who is betraying him. Duke Leto knows it's not Jessica. Duke Leto tells Paul, hey, I'm gonna pretend like it's your mother that is betraying me to try and figure out who the betrayer is. I know it's not your mother though. She and I, we are good, but you just, in case you hear anything, just know that that's kind of what I'm up to. Now, unfortunately, Duke Leto dies before he can clarify to Gurney and Thufir he did not suspect Jessica. So all these years, both Thufir, which we'll get into, and Gurney have thought that it was the Lady Jessica, this Bene Gesserit biatch, that is responsible for their precious Duke dying, and they see that as the ultimate betrayal, right? This was his lover, his concubine, the mother of his son, and it goes to show that the Bene Gesserit they don't have no loyalty to anyone other than other Bene Gesserit. Halleck, all these years, he's a very revenge-focused man. The moment he saw Jessica, he's like, I am gonna kill her. Paul steps in, they kind of come together. Paul's like, Gurney, you're wrong, man. Like, trust me, you're wrong. So Paul was so terrified that his mother almost died and that he couldn't see it, that it wasn't in his visions, because he has grown, he has built up a tolerance to the spice melange. He does not have the same visions anymore. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna drink this so that I can protect the people I love. So it's actually really beautiful. Jessica drank the water of life reluctantly for Paul, and Paul drank the water of life knowing damn well it could have killed him for his mother. Jessica actually thought Paul was really stupid for doing this. In the books, Paul is in a coma for 3 weeks after drinking like a literal tear droplet of the water of life. They bring Chani down from the north to revive Paul. The water of life in the movie is like what changes Jessica and what changes Paul. It's like what brings them over to the dark side, if you will, if you believe that they are these like manipulative, horrible people. It's not like that. It's not like that at all in the books. Paul does unlock this explosive time vision and is able to see more from the water of life. The water of life is actually to expand your mind, and it seems like once they drink the water of life, their minds actually narrowed, their focus narrowed. I don't like that change, to be honest. Now let's get into the character changes. So buckle up because I have a lot to say about this one. So the first thing that I want to talk about, this is minor, is Stilgar. I love the Stilgar character. I love him in the books. I love him in the movie. I think Javier Bardem is a brilliant casting choice. However, I do find Stilgar to be a bit more of a goofball and a zealot right away in the movie. In the books, he is a very strong leader. People look up to him. He backs Paul throughout, but he really doesn't become a zealot until the end. Even Paul at the end, like in the last few pages, the last chapter of the book, has a quote where he says, Paul reflects, in an instant, Paul saw how Stilgar had been transformed from the Fremen Naib to a creature of the Lisan al-Gaib, a receptacle for all and obedience. It was a lessening of the man, and Paul felt the ghost wind of the jihad in it. Paul feels really sad about this because Paul had a great friend. And at the end, Paul is actually looking around like, will Gurney do the same thing? Will I be left with any friends? Or will they all convert to these blind worshippers of me? Now let's talk about Paul. I think overall they did a good job. I really enjoyed Paul's character development in the movie, but it did happen differently in the books, and I want to clarify that. Beginning of Dune Part 2, Paul is like a bit of a goofball. I feel like they kind of show him as like not really knowing what's going on. People are like gossiping and laughing about him, and it is true. In the books, he does have to get used to Fremen customs and ideas. However, let's not forget that Paul has an intuitive understanding of desert life. Remember, in the first movie, he knows intuitively how to wear his still suit in the fashion of the Fremen. Even Liet Kynes talks about that. Not only that, but ever since Paul was exposed to the spice, he has started to have prescient visions. In the first half of the second film, Paul acts like he just wants to be a Fedaykin. He just wants to be a fighter, and he thinks the whole Messiah thing is dumb. He's like, I don't believe any of that. And then he just changes, right? And then even when he names himself Muad'Dib, he kind of just like laughs like, I'm gonna be this mouse, LOL. But really, in the books, he has visions of this. He kind of already knows that how things are going to go before they happen. He's also having trouble even adjusting to reality because as he gets more and more pressing it, he doesn't know what's real and what's not. He knows what is happening. Paul gets what's going on, and he's trying to do everything he can to make sure this jihad doesn't happen. The word terrible purpose is repeated throughout the book over 20 times. So he sees it as this fate, this destiny, and he knows it's not going to be good. In the movie, he's way more reluctant and sort of suspicious of his own mother, and he kind of blames it on his mom, what's going to happen. He's trying to pump the brakes, and eventually he realizes that there is nothing that he can do. His first step is just not to be killed by the Fremen, and then to be accepted by the Fremen. According to this Reddit user, I don't recall Paul exploiting the Lisan al-Gaib myth in such a conscious way. My reading of Paul is that he initially needs to prove to the Fremen why they shouldn't kill him, true, and wants to learn the ways of the desert from them to make the best of his newly exiled situation. Along the way, the Fremen start to believe in the prophecy, and he's somewhat willingly, somewhat fearfully swept up in the role of the Lisan al-Gaib and the leader. This is about as much by circumstance because he didn't choose to lose his old identity and have to reestablish it among the Fremen, and he didn't start the Bene Gesserit prophecy centuries ago as by choice. He does leverage things and he knows what he's doing towards the end, but there are reasons why. For example, Paul, this is after the time jump, once they realize that Glossu Raban is being abandoned to his own faculties on Dune, they have a great chance to strike and have the upper hand. So like I said, it's part of a bigger plot by the Baron to screw over his nephew. They keep raising the spice quotas, but then they keep lowering the amount of support that they're giving Rabban. Paul eventually learns through an intercepted memo that they are abandoning Rabban on Dune, that they're not going to send reinforcements. So it's a perfect time to strike. Now, Fremen culture don't want to have multiple leaders amongst a group. This is portrayed in the movie where people are saying, hey, Paul, if you want to talk, you need to beat Stilgar and you need to call him out and you need to kill him. Paul does not want to kill Stilgar. Paul loves Stilgar. Paul needs to find a way to both get people to follow him and believe him so that he can unite against the common enemy without having to kill Stilgar, who he really values. So that's kind of one reason why he steps up. In the books, there's this scene where he talks about that he is the Duke Paul Atreides. He has a right to Arrakis by his own father, and that Stilgar should be listened to and obeyed. Stilgar is his ally, and that kind of ends that political struggling internally. Everything that Paul does, he's still trying to prevent the jihad. He sees everything changing around him. Sometimes he is very confused on even where he is and if things have happened yet or not. At the end, he realizes there is no stopping the jihad, that the Fremen have won. Before Paul goes up to fight Feyd-Rautha, he knows that whether he lives or dies, he has become the myth. He has become the martyr. At this point, they know how to destroy the spice production. Fremen are in control, and whether Paul lives or he dies, he realizes he can't escape his own destiny. I'm going to read you a little bit of what Paul is thinking when he's talking about the guild navigators. They're accustomed to seeing the future, Paul thought. In this place and time, they're blind, even as I am. He sampled the time, winds, sensing the turmoil, the storm nexus that now focused on this moment place. Even the faint gaps were closed now. Here was the unborn jihad. He knew. Here was the race consciousness that he had known once as his own terrible purpose. Here was reason enough for a Kwisatz Haderach or a Lisan al-Gaib or even the halting schemes of the Bene Gesserit. The race of humans had felt its own dormancy, sensed itself grown stale, and knew now only the need to experience turmoil, which the genes would mingle and the strong new mixtures survive. All humans were alive as an unconscious single organism in this moment, experiencing a kind of sexual heat that could override any barrier. And Paul saw how futile were any efforts of his to change any smallest bit of this. He had thought to oppose the jihad within himself, but the jihad would be. His legions would rage out from Arrakis even without him. They needed only the legend, and he had already become. He had shown them the way, given them the mastery even over the guild, which must have the spice to exist. A sense of failure pervaded him. This is the climax, Paul thought. From here, the future will open, the clouds part onto a kind of glory, and if I die here, they'll say I sacrificed myself, that my spirit might lead them, and if I live, they'll say nothing can oppose the Muad'Dib. If this isn't the definition of a rock and a hard place, I don't know what is. Paul sees the entire human race, the human race consciousness, as an organism. Forest fires happen to kind of cleanse the land and for rebirth to happen. I know this is kind of a terrible way to talk about the imminent death of millions and billions of people throughout the universe, but Paul is seeing it as the human race had grown dormant. Paul is just a cog in this machine of this is going to change, and he doesn't have any control over it. He can die, he can kill himself right here and right now, and it will still happen. Paul still has love. He still has love for Chani. He loves his mother. He loves his dead son. He loves Gurney Halleck. He loves Thufir Hawat. They made him a bit more like an Anakin Skywalker in the movies, which I disagree with. Another thing I disagree with is Jessica's radicalization. Jessica is one of my favorite characters in the book and the movie. They made her way more sinister and diabolical in the movie. It's as if she drinks the water of life and is like, okay, let's go, Lisan al-Gaib, where she sort of manipulates Paul's legacy. This could not be more different in the books. In the books, Jessica is actually fearful of the relationship between Paul and the Fremen. She says in chapter 44, you deliberately cultivate this air, this bravuro, she charged. You never cease indoctrinating. She says, he's accepting the religious mantle. He must not do that. She shares a Bene Gesserit proverb to him. When religion and politics travel in the same cart, the riders believe nothing can stand in their way. Their movement become headlong, faster and faster and faster. They put aside all thought of obstacles and forget that a precipice does not show itself to the man in a blind rush until it's too late. She is a trained Bene Gesserit. She is there to observe and watch and counsel Paul, even though sometimes she knows that he knows more than she does. After all, he has drank the water of life too, and he is officially the Kwisatz Haderach, making him more powerful than any Reverend Mother. I disagree with this characterization of Jessica because I think it forced the characterization of Chani, which I also disagree with. Now let's talk about Chani. So my least favorite change is the way that they changed Chani's character. Now I see a lot of argument about this, about politics, about wokeness, about whatever. I'm not going to get into all that. That's not my job. I'm a book reader and I'm also a woman, okay, who loves women being strong characters. Let me just say that. I'm not here to say that women should be weak characters. So they made Chani way more of a contrarian in the movie for no reason at all. It starts with her kind of like gossiping and making fun of Paul and snacking with her friends. I've heard that they changed Chani's character to make her more palatable for a modern audience because in the books she is a very devoted, supportive force in Paul's life. She is equally religious as Stilgar. She equally believes that Paul is the prophet. She is also a Sayudina, so she is her own sort of mini Reverend Mother religious figure in the book and amongst the Fremen people. They changed that in the movie to make her super skeptical, very critical, very us versus them, and ultimately willing to just leave Paul when he chooses Princess Irulan. Dune is about the gray area. Dune is the gray area. In a world of the gray area, Chani is supposed to be this, I'm morally good, anything that's bad I disagree with. I'm going to ride off into the sunset when things kind of don't go the way that I think they should go. So I guess they did this to make Chani, who is a bit more supportive, loving, stands by Paul, like an independent woman who doesn't need a man type of vibe in the movie. I disagree with this because there are so many strong women in Dune. In the original book, there are so many strong independent women who don't need a man. Like the Bene Gesserit is literally the definition of strong independent woman, and they are like one of the most formidable political forces in the entire galaxy. What I want to say is, what's wrong with a love story? What is wrong with a woman who is a badass in her own right? Chani is still an amazing fighter. She is fierce. She is loyal. She is loving. What is wrong with her standing by Paul? Even in the books, she knows that Paul's marriage to Irulan has to happen. It has to happen to secure his claim to the throne. This is very important. Chani is extremely skeptical of foreigners. However, her father is Liet Kynes, who was changed into a woman. So her own father is a foreigner, a planetary ecologist who is loved and respected by the Fremen as one of their own. Her father is the one who showed the Fremen how they could terraform the planet and turn it into an oasis. Actually, it is Liet Kynes' death in the books that causes the Fremen to really mobilize and band together with Paul and be like, all right, fuck these Harkonnens, let's go get them. Even when they're trying to evacuate CH Tabor, Paul walks by a classroom of kids learning about dunes and planetary ecology, and Paul's like, why are they learning right now? We're supposed to be evacuating. And Hera, who is Jameis's wife, is like, this is in honor of Liet. I don't care that they turned Liet Kynes into a woman, but then why wasn't she Chani's mother? Why? Like, it just, it doesn't make any sense. They have so much reverence and respect for Liet Kynes. And I just feel like they're going to make Chani's protagonist against Paul, which is just not how it goes. I do not know if they do the Dune Messiah, how they will undo this without just Paul chasing Chani and her just looking angry. I love Zendaya. I do, but I just think she is more like Zendaya in this film than Chani. And I see so many similarities in the other characters that Zendaya plays. It's disappointing to me because she can be a strong woman and still be there with Paul. And I actually think that it damages, not only does it completely damage her character arc, but it damages Paul's character arc because Paul's love for Chani almost supersedes like his role as a charismatic leader, his role as the Muad'Dib. I just don't agree. It is serving like Paul is kind of adult in the first half, and then he looks like a dick. And I know that Paul makes some bad decisions, but he doesn't make decisions that are bad in regards to Chani. He has to marry Princess Irulan to secure the throne and to prevent bloodshed. At the end of the book, he's like, I will never love her. I only love Chani. Chani is my beloved. We've been through this. We've been through the world together. Chani being a contrarian also is making Jess radicalized, and then it kind of turns into this us versus them, Fremen versus foreigner. But the whole thing is that the Atreides become Fremen and are accepted as Fremen. And the only way, just like Liet Kynes, just like Jason Momoa, the only way you can be accepted by the Fremen is if you fully understand their society, what's going on with them. I think it actually undermines the Fremen as a people as well, because Paul uses the Fremen, yes, but the Fremen also use Paul to serve their purpose as well. The Fremen win here. The Fremen want to terraform Arrakis. They want the Harkonnens out. They want control over the spice. And that's exactly what they get. And now they're going to go fuck shit up in the universe. So anyway, I'm going to shut up about that. The last quote of the book is Chani is a bit like, what's going to happen with Irulan and Jess, which is this is a badass female moment. Okay, there's enough badass female moments. We don't need to change it and make it weird for no reason. This is the last paragraph of the book. Do you know so little of my son? Jessica whispered. See that princess standing there, so haughty and confident? They say she has pretensions of a literary nature. Let us hope she finds solace in such things. She'll have little else. A bitter laugh escaped Jessica. Think on it, Chani. That princess will have the name, yet she'll live as less than a concubine, never to know a moment of tenderness from the man to whom she's bound. While we, Chani, we who carry the name of concubine, history will call us wives. Ugh. Okay. Let's get over that for a second. Next, I want to talk about Thufir Hawat. So I'm really sad that they cut Thufir Hawat, and by extension, like the importance of mentats. I do talk about Thufir Hawat and how he is basically the human computer of the Atreides house. Hyder de Vries is the Harkonnen mentat who gets killed when Duke Leto blasts his poisoned tooth into the room. The Baron kidnaps Thufir Hawat and forces him to work for the Harkonnens by poisoning him and then administering that antidote every day. The Baron's use of Thufir Hawat that starts to put him on bad terms with the Emperor. It's just kind of a no-no that he did that, and the Emperor thinks that the Harkonnens are trying to amass too much power that ultimately causes a rift between them. And it also shows the extent of the Baron's ambition and greed. Thufir Hawat has kind of some poetic justice for his ending. He is supposed to kill Paul, but instead ends up killing himself. So Paul and Thufir have this really beautiful moment at the end. Because Thufir was working for the Harkonnens, he actually starts kind of undermining the Harkonnens in the information he gives them, and it shows that he is an Atreides through and through. Then also the Baron Harkonnen in the books, he is a lot more like flamboyant and calculating. He's arguably way more evil in the books, does some really messed up stuff. They probably don't want to disturb the viewers too much. In the movie, he is killed by Paul, which I do enjoy that ending because, like I said earlier, it would have been weird if Aaliyah had killed him. I want to talk about Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen very briefly. So Feyd-Rautha, played by Austin Butler, first of all, was just a chilling look. I love what they did with Feyd-Rautha. However, his character is different in the books. In the books, he's a lot more calculating and charismatic. He can hold his own politically and was actually supposed to be more charming than his brother, who was supposed to be the cruel one. In the book, he actually has his own political agenda. He's trying to kill Baron so that he can take over Dune faster, since the Baron is naming him as his successor. Now, I want to talk about the arena scene really quickly. The arena scene was phenomenal now that I've talked about Thufir. So in the books, obviously, there was all these people that come just to watch Feyd-Rautha kill a drugged up slave gladiator, which, like, big whoop. Like, cool. You're killing someone who's probably starved and beaten and who's also drugged. And then Feyd-Rautha is known for having a poisoned blade. And so Thufir Hawat basically gives Feyd-Rautha this idea, hey, why not only to impress everybody, but also to kind of get ahead politically, why don't you fight a non-drugged slave gladiator? Thufir Hawat had conditioned the slave, where if Feyd-Rautha muttered the word scum, it would render him immobile very briefly, and then Feyd-Rautha could go in. He switched his blades, so the one that he was normally poisoned is not poisoned, the one that's normally not poisoned is poisoned. That would also allow them to cast doubt on the slave master and even Feyd-Rautha's political enemies. I loved the scene between Feyd-Rautha and Lady Margot Fenring. However, in the books, her husband is also there, who is Count Casimir Fenring. Count Casimir Fenring is a very interesting character. He was supposed to be the Kwisatz Haderach, but he was unfortunately, by a weird whatever, was born a eunuch. But that doesn't make him any less powerful and lethal. He is one of the Emperor's close confidants. He was actually the interim governor on Arrakis. He is all in it with his wife. He's like, yeah, you go seduce Feyd-Rautha. I'm gonna go like freak out the Baron and kind of let him know that we're moving against him. I'm actually thinking of making another video where I completely break down and decode that scene, because that is one of my favorite scenes in the book. One of the last things that the movie left out was the Spacing Guild, which I was super bummed about. So I talk about in my Dune terminology video that the Spacing Guild and the Guild Navigators are essential to the whole functioning of the universe of Dune. They are the ones that ingest a ton of spice to the point where it has changed their DNA. They are able to navigate space successfully through the prescient visions given to them by the spice melange. Now, they are very important because it raises the stakes of what Paul is about to do. Paul figures out a way to not only harm the spice production on Arrakis, but completely destroy it. The Guild Navigators know that he can do this. The Truthsayers know that he can do this. He is not bluffing. This is one of the reasons why the great houses and the Emperor ultimately capitulate to Paul. The ability to change and destroy the spice production would mean that the universe as we know it gets blasted into smithereens, in the sense that there is no more space travel. People are on their planets and that's it. And everything will change. So it is a tipping point. The universe as a whole is about to radically shift. The Spacing Guild will play a really important role in the later stories. Just another thing that I want to mention really briefly, I did like the casting choice for Emperor Shaddam IV. I love Christopher Walken. I feel like the Emperor was not written very well. In the books, he is a way more formidable force. In the movie, you just kind of seem this old man and is like, "Dur, dur, dur." And it's just him in a room with like 5 Sardaukar, where in the book he comes with 5 legions of Sardaukar. That MFer is confident. He's like, yeah, there's no way this Moadi little desert rat boy is gonna get me. I have my Sardaukar. My Sardaukar are the best in the whole world. Fremen ain't got shit. I do think he could have been a better character if he had been written better. And then nitpicky little things that I found in the movie is, okay, did the eyes like stop being blue some of the time? Were Zendaya and Javier Bardem's eyes like brown half the time, or was that just me? The second thing that really bothered me, okay, this is nitpicky, but the Fremen do not hang out in the desert during the day. Only thing that happens during the day is Paul Atreides tests to basically wrangle up his sandworm Shai-Hulud Uber. This is a ceremony that has to take place in the day, and they make a point in the books to say that they change their sleep schedules so that they can be awake during the day. First of all, I was bothered because it hurt my eyes, but I was bothered by these scenes because it's mentioned like a million bajillion times in the book that they move at night, they sleep during the day. Anyway, let's end on a positive note. Like I said, I loved this movie, and I do want to say some things that the movie did better than the books. I like how they did not bring Aaliyah into existence. I really like what they did with her talking to her mother in the womb. I also love just the action sequences. Denis Villeneuve at his best. He knows what he's doing in creating an absolutely beautiful spectacle, utilizing CGI as little as possible, putting his actors through hell in the desert. I think the action was amazing. The worm scenes, oh my god, the worm scenes were incredible. This is just stuff that the book can't do justice to. Obviously, Frank Herbert is a great writer, but the book functions way better as a psychological novel and kind of what's going on in the mind than necessarily what's going on in the world. So the cinematography, the sound, the editing, it was just chef's kiss. I can't wait to see it again. Let me know what you think in the comments. This video is quite long, so I'm gonna stop. Up next on the Dune docket, I'm either going to break down the dinner party scene in the first half of the book, which was unfortunately cut from Dune Part 1, or like I said, break down the arena scene between the Baron and Count Casimir Fenring, as well as Feyd-Rautha's battle with the slave. So if you have a preference, please let me know in the comments. Your support means the absolute world to me. If you're not subscribed, please make sure you subscribe, comment, like this video. I appreciate every moment and minute that you guys sit here with me. I hope you like this video. Let me know if you agree. If you disagree, also let me know. But just remember, be nice. Let's all be nice to each other. We're not here to make like anything political and annoying and weird. So let's just talk about the movie and be nerds together. Have a great day. Have a great night. And I will see you on here soon. Talk to you later. Bye.